Welcome, thrill seekers, to a world of spine-chilling tales and hair-raising adventures. Gather around for a frightful journey into the unknown as we delve deep into the realm of scary stories. Buckle up, hold on tight, and get ready to experience a rush of terror like never before. It was a dark and stormy night, the kind of night that made even the bravest of souls shiver with fear. John was driving home from a long day at work when he saw her, standing on the side of the road. She was a young woman, soaking wet and shivering from the cold. "Are you okay?" John asked, rolling down his window. The woman looked up, her eyes filled with fear. "Please, can you give me a ride?" she asked, her voice trembling. John hesitated. He had heard the stories about the ghostly hitchhiker, the woman who would appear on dark and stormy nights, only to disappear without a trace. But he couldn't leave her out in the rain, so he unlocked the door and let her in. "Thank you," the woman said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry to be a bother." "It's no problem," John said, trying to make her feel more comfortable. "What's your name?" The woman hesitated before answering. "Emily," she said. "My name is Emily." As they drove down the dark and winding road, John couldn't help but feel uneasy. There was something strange about Emily, something that made his skin crawl. "Are you okay?" he asked, glancing over at her. Emily was staring out the window, her eyes fixed on something in the distance. "I'm fine," she said, her voice distant. "Just a little tired." John nodded, turning his attention back to the road. But as they drove on, he began to notice strange things happening. The radio started to flicker on and off, the windshield wipers began to move faster than they should, and the car started to make strange noises. "What's going on?" John asked, his heart pounding in his chest. But Emily didn't answer. She was staring out the window, her eyes fixed on something in the distance. And then, suddenly, there was a loud crash. The car had hit a tree, and John was thrown forward, his head hitting the steering wheel. When he opened his eyes, he saw Emily standing outside the car, looking down at him with a cold, unfeeling gaze. "Emily?" John asked, his voice barely above a whisper. But Emily didn't answer. Instead, she disappeared into the darkness, leaving John alone in the wrecked car. For days after the accident, John lay in the hospital, trying to piece together what had happened. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, something that he couldn't explain. And then, one night, he saw her again. Emily, standing on the side of the road, her eyes fixed on him with a cold, unfeeling gaze. "Please, can you give me a ride?" she asked, her voice trembling. John shook his head, his heart pounding in his chest. "No," he said. "I won't make the same mistake twice." But Emily didn't disappear. Instead, she climbed into the car, her cold, lifeless hands wrapping around the steering wheel. And then they were off, driving down the dark and winding road, with John trapped in the passenger seat beside the ghostly hitchhiker. For months, John drove with Emily, never able to escape her grasp. He tried to run, tried to leave the car, and never looked back. But no matter how far he ran, Emily was always there, waiting for him on the side of the road. And then, one night, they drove off a cliff. The car tumbled down the rocky slope, crashing to a stop at the bottom. John was thrown from the car, his body battered and broken. As he lay there in the darkness, he felt a cold hand reach out to him, pulling him towards the wreckage of the car. It was Emily, her lifeless eyes fixed on him, her cold fingers wrapping around his wrist. "Come with me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We can be together forever." John tried to pull away, to free himself from her grasp, but he was too weak. He could feel his life slipping away, his body growing colder and colder. And then, suddenly, he was free. Emily's grip had disappeared, and John was left alone in the darkness. For months after the accident, John lay in a coma, his body broken and battered. But when he finally woke up, he knew that he had to escape Emily's grasp once and for all. He left the hospital, determined to put the ghostly hitchhiker behind him. But no matter where he went, he could feel her presence, her cold fingers reaching out to him from beyond the grave. And then, one night, he saw her again. Emily, standing on the side of the road, her eyes fixed on him with a cold, unfeeling gaze. "Please, can you give me a ride?" she asked, her voice trembling. John shook his head, his heart pounding in his chest. "No," he said. "I won't make the same mistake twice." But Emily didn't disappear. Instead, she climbed into the car, her cold, lifeless hands wrapping around the steering wheel. And then they were off, driving down the dark and winding road, with John trapped in the passenger seat beside the ghostly hitchhiker. For years, John drove with Emily, never able to escape her grasp. He tried to run, tried to leave the car, and never looked back. But no matter how far he ran, Emily was always there, waiting for him on the side of the road. And then, one night, John realized the truth. Emily was not a ghost, but a manifestation of his own guilt and fear. She was the embodiment of all the mistakes he had made in his life, all the wrong turns he had taken. And so he faced her, confronted her head on, and in that moment, Emily disappeared. John was left alone on the side of the road, his heart pounding in his chest. From that day forward, John lived his life with a new sense of purpose, no longer haunted by the ghostly hitchhiker. He knew that he could never escape his past, but he could learn from it, and he could use it to make a better future for himself. As the night draws to a close, we bid farewell to the terrors that haunted us and the spine-tingling tales that kept us on the edge of our seats. Remember, the darkness may linger, but the dawn always brings a new light. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and never stop exploring the mysteries of the unknown.